We all need help. This is our example to follow, and we see tech. Yeah, good, y'all can hear me. We see this exemplified in Moses's life. Deuteronomy is the second law. It's the telling of the law. So Deuteronomy, the best way to think of Deuteronomy is Moses' charge to the second generation of Israelites as they go into the promised land. If you remember the first generation, they failed to take the promised land that God had given to them. They did not want to go into the promised land. They said there were giants there and we can't do it. And so they were sentenced to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, and all of that generation would die out until the next generation would rise up to take the land. And so Deuteronomy is Moses preaching to the Israelites, saying, it's time to go on in, boys and girls. And he reminds them of all the things that they had done. And so Moses is reminding them about how they left Horeb, which is another word for Mount Sinai, and a very sad sentence here. It is 11 days journeys from Horeb, which is Mount Sinai, by way of Mount Seir, to Kadesh Barnea. It should have only taken them 11 days once they left Mount Sinai and made it to Kadesh Barnea. But instead of it being 11 days, they did make it to Kadesh Barnea, but they chose not to go into the promised land. So rather than it being 11 days until the Lord delivered them into the promised land, it is how long? Verse 3, in the 40th year. Oh, are you behind God's timetable? Are you as spiritually strong as you should be? Perhaps you are taking the 40-year spiritual growth plan instead of the 11-day spiritual growth plan. Some of us need to kick it in gear, if you will, not because it is us that brings about our own spiritual growth, but it's because we are not submitting ourselves, submitting our lives, submitting our time, submitting every part of us unto the Lord. Are you behind God's timetable? Are you spending 40 years wandering around in the wilderness rather than taking the land that God has offered to you, taking the job that God has distinctly and uniquely called you to do? We see here in verse 8, Moses was telling them, see, I have set the land before you. He said that to the first generation. He's going to say that again to the second generation. Go in and take possession of the land. Go and do it. Go do what God has asked you to do. Don't sit around and let somebody else do what God has commanded you to do. Moses goes on to say in verse 9, at that time I said to you, I'm not able to bear you by myself. Oh, the burden of leadership has come upon him, and this is where we see this example for us to follow. Moses says, I need help. And we see God gives them the help. In verse 15, it says, so I took the heads of your tribes, wise and experienced men, and set them as heads over you, commanders of thousands, commanders of hundreds, commanders of fifties, commanders of tens, and officers throughout your tribe. And in a sense, there was a organizational chart. Moses at the top being the main leader, and then there were folks underneath Moses and folks underneath those and those. And then so all the easier cases, if you will, were to be taken care of by those that were commanders of tens and those of fifties, and it would work its way up until the most difficult ones got to Moses. And as I was reading this, I was thinking, especially as we're coming up on deacon elections in our own church, where we select the deacons that are going to serve our church. This is how we solve this organizational problem. This is God's divine plan on how to help pastors, how to help overseers, how to help elders. This is how God has set it up, is that we have two biblical offices, pastor and deacon. Pastor and deacon. We have pastors and we have deacons. And so these deacons help the pastors go about the work of the church. They help serve the church. And so you are entering into a very important time as you select and elect deacons to help serve the church. The Israelites were having folks help them, and you are as well as a church. I pray that has been a blessing to you all. I'll see you in the next video.